So before I made this video, I was on a live stream talking about CM Punk being fired from AEW. If you go back and watch that live stream, I know it's about 30 minutes. It's about as far as I got using the live stream on YouTube before my internet went out, and I haven't been able to make a new stream from that. So it kind of sucks because there was a guy in the chat that was having a conversation, and I was like, I kind of want to have a conversation, and I wanted to answer the guy's question. So to wrap up, or sort of summarize and then wrap up what I was saying, CM Punk has been fired from AEW, confirmed by Tony Khan, after controversies with the Elite, controversies with Ace Steel, Jack Perry being the last of the controversies, along with John Moxley and Chris Jericho. To sort of summarize all of that up, he's been in brawls. He's been in creative differences. They, in fact, created an entirely new show, Collision, for CM Punk because he's such a big draw in AEW. Now, I've been disinterested with CM Punk ever since he tried to be political in all of his, sort of gimmick in wrestling. Now, look, I get it. You want to use your platform to spread your message, but that's not your job. That's not why people pay to watch you. That's not why people tune into wrestling they don't tune into wrestling to be preached at. They tune into wrestling to be entertained. And so the point that I was trying to make is that he was using his activism, along with Tony Khan, they were both doing it. They were using their activism to try and shield criticism that most people have. And it's not just them, it's all the wrestlers that do this stuff. They always do this. Every time they get on Twitter, they vent some sort of frustration. And they can't stand that fans have different opinions sometimes. I mean, shit, man. Look at Britt Baker on Twitter. Look at Saraya on Twitter. Like, they got mad at Glenn Jacobs, Kane. Because why? Because he ran for mayor of Tennessee as a Republican? Like, I get it, you disagree. But why are you making a big deal out of it? That's supposed to be your guy. Seeing how they treated Glenn Jacobs Kane, how they treated Gunner, what's his name? Jackson Riker from WWE, right? How they treated those guys, how they treat Lacey Evans. Like, that's kind of messed up. And I get it, you can disagree, that's fine. But to go out of your way to be like calling them names, attacking people who support them, saying that the fans who disagree with you are istophobe, a thing of things, right? That's not cool. That's some egotistical Hollywood-ass bullshit, man. And so what I'm trying to say, my point that I was trying to make with doing this live stream, with covering this CM Punk incident, was to sort of clarify that when you hire activists, problems will always come. Happen to Target, happen to Bud Light, happen to Miller Lite, will happen to anybody who tries to be an SJW activist before doing their job, basically. And it happens to entertainers too, like professional wrestlers and Hollywood and musicians and anybody else who pretty much has a career of being in a circus. So I understand if you disagree with the take, that's cool. You can have a different opinion from me, that's fine. I don't think CM Punk was fired because of his activism. That'd be a lie. He was fired because he's been a fucking problem for over a year. Probably way longer than that. Same reason he was a problem in AEW or WWE. Now, I don't like the way that he left WWE because he wasn't in the wrong when he left WWE. I think WWE screwed him over back in the day. That's undoubtedly what happened. But AEW was a second chance for CM Punk to be the superstar he was always meant to be. And you know what? He got into fights with multiple people. He got into literal fights with the Elite and Jungle Boy. And dude, I know that he's a big star. I know that he's a moneymaker. But nobody is above the fans. Nobody is above criticism. And nobody is above the paycheck. So I believe that the reason why first of all, the reason why specifically I got disinterested with CM Punk is because of his activism. Because he was trying to be a holier than thou motherfucker. who is trying to go out of his way to be like, if you don't agree with me saying that trans rights are human rights, then you must just be a bigot. I don't care if you're a wrestling fan. That's some divisive ass bullshit. And I think that's chicken shit. Ultimately, I couldn't grow to hate CM Punk, but I couldn't really care for him either. I stopped caring about CM Punk as a wrestler. I stopped caring about him as a person. And now he's fired from AEW, not for activism, but because he's a scumbag piece of shit. And people are starting to finally realize that. And they've been realizing it ever since he got into the brawl out with it, the Elite. And so I don't have a problem with trans people or LGBTQ people in pro wrestling. I've never had a problem with that. What I have a problem with is when they start forcing it down people's throats, when they start making it a priority to educate their fans that don't like this whole lifestyle or whatever their whole deal is. They have fans in the audience who hold up signs like support LGBTQ youth or trans rights or whatever the hell. I'm not going to hate the audience for bringing a sign to an AEW, show. They can do that if they want to. They're free Americans. They can do that. But ultimately, when wrestlers do it, that's whenever I sort of see this like, hey, they're basically making a statement that they don't like me as a fan because I might disagree. And it doesn't just apply to me. It applies to everybody who thinks like me or thinks like this way of like, guys, just wrestle. Just do your job. Just go out there and put on a show. Don't try and preach to me. Regardless of whether they cut a promo on it, whether they wear a t-shirt, whether they do it on Twitter, it doesn't really matter. They always come out and say these things, and more often than not, they're doing it to make a statement. And when they make that statement, they expect backlash. When the backlash comes, they're like, okay, I was ready. I was ready to piss some people off. And it's like, dude, that's not right. You don't have to do that. Because people, thousands of people everywhere, millions of people almost, adore some of these guys. And I get that it's a niche sport. You can get away with doing trans wrestlers and all that stuff. Like, dude, that's fine. I've been saying that. I have been saying that you can have trans wrestlers. It's not a problem. It's whenever it gets to like MMA or football or something where people can actually get like severely hurt from physical contact where you're trying to kill your opponent. Now, like deathmatch, like I guess that's a little different, but like pro wrestling in general, like Nyla Rose or Giselle Shaw, like I've never had a problem with wrestlers that are like that. I think every time we see a Rick Steiner, they got all bent out of shape over Rick Steiner calling out Giselle Shaw. Like, dude, quit being a bunch of fucking babies, all right? Quit being babies over this kind of shit. And so I know that y'all want to be all, oh, we're standing with our buddies in the LGBTQ and trans communities. And it's like, well, your buddies in the LGBTQ and trans communities are also trying to indoctrinate kids. I'm going to let that sink in. They've been trying to groom kids in education systems too. So I can support your ideology. I can support your way of life and still think it's fucking weird. Sorry. Not really sorry though. And look, back onto the topic of CM Punk. Like I said, I don't hate CM Punk. I just don't really like him anymore. I don't care for him, even though he was my hero. He was the guy who helped me get through my depression in high school. And now I just can't stand to be bothered with him, right? It's not that I can't stand him. It's that I get tired of hearing him whine and complain about, oh, everybody sucks here in AEW. Oh, WWE's been so garbage. Oh, I'm complaining so bad about this, and that. Getting all bent out of shape about Colt Cabana, for fuck's sake. Just wrestle, dude. You act like you're a hard ass, but like you got beaten 2 MMA fights, 2 UFC fights in front of thousands of people. You think that you're tough shit all of a sudden. And then you're going to be all jumping on AEW and wearing these shirts to try and piss people off, specifically where they're at. And then even more so, when they criticize you, you go out and you start saying stuff like, well, you can't argue with stupid. Well, I guess that's true because you don't respond to them because you don't have an argument against them. So yeah, I guess you can't argue with stupid because you really don't have an argument to formulate there. So CM Punk was not fired for his activism, and I'll say that again. He wasn't fired for his activism. He was fired because he's a fucking toxic employee. And I would say him being an activist had a big part in that. I believe him trying to be holier than thou, playing this game of identity politics and trying to take the higher ground on being like, well, you can't hate me. I like trans people. I think that helped in building an ego that couldn't be contained. Apart from also the mass amounts of money that he must have made when he went into Collision when David Zaslav wanted one Bill Phil. So, look, to the guy who was in the chat, like, I don't have anything against you, buddy, but you were bringing non-arguments to the argument that I was trying to make. And because we mostly agreed on some of this stuff. And so I'm sorry to tell you that. I don't mean to be rude or dismissive or divisive of, whatever I'm doing here, but understand that as a fan of wrestling, as a person who grew up loving CM Punk, this is why I've been turned off by CM Punk. This is why things have sort of been a problem for pro wrestling in terms of the wrestlers. Now, it's not every wrestler. I haven't stopped watching AEW because of it. All the points that I was trying to make is that CM Punk has been fired. Had to do a little bit with his activism. I think that might have been a part of it. That was the point that I was trying to make. Bigger part of it, the reason why he was fired, was because he was toxic and he was acting like a degenerate, basically. Even though Tony Khan, who's also an activist, who also has gone out of his way to try and virtue signal to the crowd, gave him basically the world. Gave him the world in his palms, and he threw it away over ego. With what? Jack Perry. Somebody who, why does CM Punk care if Jack Perry uses real glass? Why does he care? That's why I don't understand. Is like, why does he care? Why does he go out of his way to call Hangman an idiot, or John Moxley or Chris Jericho incompetent buffoons? I don't get it. I don't get it. Those are supposed to be people that you're supposed to be in line with, that you're supposed to be buddies with. I mean, you don't have to agree with them all the time, but you're expected to be, have a sort of brotherly conduct with people in the locker room. That's a thing that's been taught in wrestling all the time. And somehow CM Punk missed the memo because he thought he was holier than thou. He thought because he had a position of power, not only as a wrestler or as a rich man's entertainer or as an activist, he felt like he was above everyone else simply because he was good on the mic. And so I know I ramble with this topic, and I've been rambling, but I think my point that I've been trying to make is that CM Punk has been fired, and why I don't think it's a good idea to hire activists has been proven many times. And CM Punk was indeed an activist. Whether it was good or bad for AEW, that's not for me to say, because they sold out Wembley Stadium and All In. I don't think it's damaged their company or their brand at all. In fact, the more they do it, it's almost like the more fans they get. What I'm saying is that whenever CM Punk does that, whenever wrestlers do that, they get this mindset that elevates them above everyone else, makes them a problem, as does anywhere else. So I hope that made sense. I hope I wasn't just rambling for no reason and making people more confused. To the guy who's in the chat, I'm not trying to disrespect you, dog. I thank you for jumping in the chat and, spilling your thoughts. I appreciate it. But that's just my take on it. That's how I feel. I feel like I had to get it out. Also, I need content for this channel, So I'm going to be heading off now. Hopefully I'll get back to this live stream. Well, I'm not going to get back on a live tonight, but hopefully this live stream makes it through the 30-minute one. So we'll see. Thanks for watching. Hope everyone's safe. Hope everybody has a good day. Don't smoke crack. Do what makes you happy, but don't smoke crack. And you know what I mean. Don't smoke crack. Bye.